Hello and welcome to the Fantasy Flex podcast presented by PrizePicks. I'm your host, Samantha Previte. Here, every Thursday on this podcast, I will be answering your mailbag questions, which you can submit for future shows to mailbag@actionnetwork.com. Today, I am super excited to be joined by Brandon Anderson, who is a NFL and NBA writer here at Action Network, doing all sorts of different things, props, fantasy, everything. So welcome to the podcast, Brandon. How was your week 2?
Well, it was all right. It was not as good as week 1. I kind of washed out on bets, came out about 50-50, but it's not the worst thing in the world. You know, if a bad week is kind of coming back out even, there are worse escapes to be made. Today has been a weird sports day. My Timberwolves have blown up the team. I'm getting ready to go to a Cubs game, but we are here to talk about NFL. So it's all happening for me.
That is so exciting. Multi-sport athlete over here. I live right across from Coors Field and I haven't been to a game in like months now. And I'm really, really itching because you can hear it literally from my apartment building. So I'm super excited, super jealous you're going to the Cubs game. Who are they playing today?
They're playing the Twins. So this is actually both of my teams. I grew up a Minnesota sports fan and now I'm in Chicago area. So get to see both of them. My brother is in town for this one. This is my first Cubs game since we handed out the World Series rings. So It's been a minute. I think that's about 4 full seasons. And there's maybe like 2 guys left who got one of those rings. So this is a very different team. I had the blue wedding earlier this year when the Cubs traded just about everyone away. But there's nothing like being at a game, especially in COVID. We've all learned, I think, to appreciate what that will be like. Outdoors is my friend, and I can't wait to get a hot dog and watch a game and learn some of these new players.
Yes, please enjoy the ambiance of live sports and adult beverage if you're into that. And yeah, just a hot dog, I guess. I love stadium food actually. So, I couldn't do it like every day. We even did it like back to back when Katie, our editor, went to the All-Star game in the Home Run Derby. And I was like, this might be a little too much, but like, I still enjoy it.
So when you're at Coors Field, what's your go-to? What's the order that you're getting at Coors?
Mostly I am focused on getting a White Claw or something like that. But usually I'm a hot dog person. I feel like I didn't really love the like hamburger that I got last time. So I'm just generally sticking to hot dogs if I'm going to get food. But honestly, like ice cream too, if the weather's permitting. So yeah, I kind of love like a good ice cream on a warm summer baseball night.
Yeah, I'm ready I got the hoodie out today. I forgot that it's late fall and that we're going to get some like 60s or 50s lake temperature tonight at this game. So I might just have to dip into the hot chocolates of the world, but I'm more of a nachos guy. So just give me a big platter of nachos, maybe some chicken strips, but you can't go wrong with ballpark food.
I have never been to a live sporting event where like, where it's like absolutely freezing, like a Patriots game or a Bills game or something where they come in sleeping bags. And I just like can't imagine that because my body gets so cold if I'm sitting for any period of time. Like the only hope is if I'm moving around. So either they're drinking massive amounts of beer, which probably is true, or I don't know, man. I think I would literally die of hypothermia. Like that can't be fun, honestly.
Yeah, see, I'm the other side. I'm from North Dakota, so I grew up in snow at all times. So I've done the like bare-chested in the snow football game, letter painted on your chest experience. Like that's just college to me. That's what football was like here. So, that's just another day. We got winter about half the year, so you got to get used to a little cold in my world.
I missed out on the true college experience. I did not go to university in the States, so I certainly did not have the college football experience. I have actually never been to a college football game, so I feel like I'm so missing out. All these stories that people tell me, I'm always just like, yeah, that sounds like fun. Like, I can't relate. I went to McGill. We do have an NFL player that was in my year at McGill. Laurent Duvernay-Tardif, who is a lineman for the Chiefs. He is actually a doctor, which is super.
Yeah. He took last year off to fight COVID on the front lines, and now he's back to fight Raiders on the front lines.
Super impressive. I remember when he was like in the draft class, and he, I guess, was saying that just studying for the MCAT, he lost like 35 pounds because it's so hard for them to like keep on weight. I mean, he's probably like over 300 pounds. So big dude. But yeah, Canadian pride. All right, let us just jump into the mailbag. Hit me with some questions.
All right, our first question comes from Kenzie. She says, should I start the Cardinals defense or the Browns defense this week? I'm guessing the Cardinals since they're up against Jacksonville. Thank you in advance.
So polite, Kenzie. So for me, it's kind of like a coin flip. I think these are really, really close. I think they're both really good starts, like definitely top 12 starts. I'm going to go with the Browns DST. I think you're correct that the Cardinals defense gets the slight edge in terms of matchup. Well, maybe a little bit more of an edge now that Justin Fields has been named the starter, though the Bears and Jaguars have scored 17 points per game this year each. So they haven't put up too much offense. Like I said, I think this may change a little bit since Fields will be the starter. I trust the Bears offense as a whole more now, but with the way the Cardinals offense has been playing, I can definitely see this game having more shootout potential. Vegas seems to agree. I got these lines last night, so I don't know if they changed with the quarterback change, but the Cardinals Jaguars game has a point total of 52, tied for the fourth highest point total of the week versus 46.5 for Bears Browns.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I think that the Browns could have a big game this week. One reason, I'm in Chicago area, so everyone's been talking about Justin Fields ever since they drafted him. Everyone's excited for his debut, but one reason I think Andy Dalton was starting is because he has had one of the fastest release times. He doesn't do much, but he does get the ball out fast. And with Fields, that was one of the big draft critiques, was that he's a little slow getting things out. And so you put Fields on the road in a raucous environment. You got a rough, Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney bearing down on him. And to me, that spells some sacks, maybe an interception, some forced problems there. So I like the Browns to cause some, mistakes from a rookie in his first start on the road. So I like that one.
Yeah, and we definitely saw, I guess, a little bit of when he stepped in last week of maybe like rookie mistakes. We saw the interception and stuff. So I think, I'm not saying that he's not going to be good for fantasy. Actually, I would probably not start him this week. I think next week and the week after would be the times to start him. I think he takes on the Raiders and Lions in the next couple of weeks, or that might be backwards. But so maybe this week I would wait because, like you said, the Browns have a pretty decent pass rush. So I could see that being an issue for the rookie.
Yeah, I like that. All right. Nate writes, would you start James Robinson or Tyson Williams this week in half PPR league?
God, the James Robinson whole thing is just giving me such a headache because obviously, like, we thought it was going to be a perfect situation. It's honestly been a roller coaster because guy comes out of nowhere, undrafted free agent in 2020. He ends up being like, RB5 last year for fantasy.
Amazing.
And then, which is like absolutely incredible. Obviously, a lot of volume there, and then everyone wrote him off for dead when Travis Etienne was drafted. Then Etienne gets injured and Robinson's right back in that RB2 conversation, but he has just not put that up. So I'm going to go with Tyson Williams. The matchup is better in Detroit opposite, as opposed to versus Arizona, and Williams is the top back in a very run heavy Baltimore offense, which I don't think this is a hot take, is significantly better coached than Jacksonville. Williams is tied with Melvin Gordon right now, and half PPR is RB11 through 2 weeks, while Robinson is RB42. So he's got the better matchup, better opportunity, track record thus far. So to me, he's an easy start over Robinson. What do you think between those two guys?
Yeah, I think it's about game script on this one. You either have the Baltimore running back who's likely going to be running all game, protecting a lead, or you have the Jacksonville one who might be behind all game. And then who knows if you're catching passes, who knows if you're not even on the field, maybe it's a different back. So I like James Robinson coming to the year. I bet on him to lead the league in rushing, and I could pretty much just throw that ticket away at this point, I think. So I think
it's only week 2, man.
Yeah, right. We tried. I bet on pretty much every other Baltimore running back for that one too. So I've got a few other torn up tickets already.
I totally get that. I think we talked about this, but I was a little bit over leveraged on J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards things. I was telling everyone to go out and bet Gus Edwards over 4.5 rushing touchdowns, which I guess voids because he's not playing, but still.
Yeah, that's the good thing.
I was definitely in on this Baltimore backfield, which has obviously exploded.
Yeah. All right. Our next one is from Beachbod 101. That this question is not from me, is what you learned from that. So Beachbod 101 says, who to start for week 3, Devontae Parker or Rondale Moore? Any feedback would be much appreciated.
Yeah, so both have pretty positive matchups. I'm going to say Moore over Parker, though. I've been really high on Moore all week, really the past couple weeks. You can read a really great piece from Sean Kerner about this that was from before his awesome performance in week 2. That was like, go pick him up before there's a mad rush. And of course, he goes off. So there was a mad rush. But the Dolphins play the Raiders this week, who have been middle of the road against the pass. Parker has a number of things working against him, though. For one, Will Fuller is expected to make his debut for Miami this week, which was supposed to happen last week. He was serving out a 6-week suspension that started last season, took a week off for personal reasons, but I think he's coming back this week. In addition, his addition will ultimately cannibalize some targets from Parker and Waddle, but more so from Parker, since they're like more the stretch the field type guys, where Waddle lines up more in the slot. Second, I wrote these notes like last night where the quarterback situation was up in the air. It is no longer up in the air. Tua Tagovailoa has fractured ribs. He's not going to play. It's going to be Jacoby Brissett. I'm not sure that that's necessarily a downgrade for the whole offense, but if it hurts anyone, it probably hurts guys like Parker more. So this offense was also just shut out 35-0 last week, with Brissett stepping in for Tagovailoa. It's just looked overall pretty anemic. On the other side of things, we've got more in this Cardinals offense, which has just looked absolutely fantastic. I think that they will feast on the Jaguars secondary, who have allowed the 6th most passing yards per game this year. He is the wide receiver 4 in this offense, but it's super high volume. They play a ton of 4 wide sets, and he has more targets than DeAndre Hopkins, Christian Kirk, and AJ Green. So I like him for this week and beyond.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on this one. The Cardinals, look, you really don't know what you're going to get from either of these guys, just because they're, not buried on the depth chart, but certainly not at the top of it. So you're not really sure from week to week. So I think it just comes to the matchup then. And you got to like playing Jacksonville. We've talked about that one a couple of times. There's going to be points in that game. And I think Jacksonville might even score a little bit too. So then Arizona will just have to keep throwing. So I don't necessarily love either one of these guys. I'm not sure they're going to be super consistent long-term, but I agree with what you said. I think Rondale Moore looks like the right play this week. He's a jitterbug. That dude is tiny and just like running right through the whole defense. Just before halftime last week, my poor Vikings gave up like a 70-yard bomb to Rondale. And then right before halftime, gave up another great play where it's kind of a dump off screen. And he ran through like 5 defenders, got out of bounds with a second left, and made a big play that picked up a field goal. So if you're Arizona, you got to like what you're seeing with him. I feel like he gets on the field a little bit more. So I like that one.
Sorry about that game. That was a painful loss, I'm sure.
Well, it's just another day for Minnesota fans.
Someday
right.
You'll have a great career.
Someday. All right. Up next from @Matthew J. Sloan, he writes, would you drop Kenneth Gainwell for Alexander Madison if you also roster Dalvin Cook?
So I think this brings up an interesting point, because I want to address this first. I don't know where you stand on rostering your own backup. Like personally, it doesn't matter to me if you have Cook when you're assessing whether or not to roster Madison. So this dilemma comes down to Madison versus Gainwell, but I'm just curious to see where you stand on that spectrum in terms of like, do you need to get, this is not, I was just going to say Tony Pollard, Ezekiel Elliott, but that's actually no longer a good example. But Madison and Cook are the perfect example. So if you drafted Cook in the first round, say you had the 2nd overall pick, are you taking Madison later on?
Yeah, this is a tricky one for me, because typically I'm not a fan of having to invest in that handcuff running back, just because you're kind of wasting a pick. You're wasting a roster spot, even more important to me, because I love to play waivers and trade, and I don't want that spot just wasting away all year. To me, I think if you have Cook, you ought to have Madison, because if Cook does get injured, and he basically does every single year for a few games, then Madison is a top 5 or 10 play. So that makes sense to put them together. But for me, if I think that about a player, if Cook is likely to get injured, I'm less likely to want him on my team in the first place because I don't want to invest the 2 picks and the extra roster spot. So I'm usually going to fade the situation in that spot. But for me, if I do have Cook, I would personally want to keep Madison around just because if it's a guy that has, a run-centric team like Minnesota, and where if Cook does get hurt, Madison, we've seen him. He's been productive. We know that he would be the guy. So I think it's rare that a handcuff is worth it. But in a spot like that where you're going to have like an RB1 immediately, then I think that I maybe hang on to him. But it depends on the team probably.
Yeah, I mean, it obviously, all these things depend. We're just getting these questions in a vacuum without seeing your roster, seeing your settings and everything like that. But in terms of the Gainwell versus Madison question, like I said, it just really depends. If you need a flex play this week in like a deeper league, I think Gainwell gives you more guaranteed points since he is in a committee with Sanders versus just being a backup. He also has a plush matchup against the Dallas run defense. Meanwhile, Madison, like I said, is the clear-cut backup. He will see a pretty trivial workload barring a major injury to Cook. Just in terms of like workload, Madison is seeing 2 attempts. That's a 4% share this season to Cook's 42, while Gainwell has seen 15 attempts to Sanders 28. So that's about, I can't do math, but he's seeing about half of what Sanders is seeing, whereas Madison is barely being used. I think those 2 touches he probably got were when Cook was like briefly out of the game and in the injury tent last week. That said, if you are super deep at running back and only need a bench stash for a potential upside, I would say Madison makes more sense. Both guys, Gainwell and Madison, would vault into immediate RB1 consideration if either Cook or Sanders were to miss time, but the possibility of Cook missing time is higher, I think, just from his history and also given the fact that he is already banged up. So that is what I'm going with. I would say probably in most cases, I would keep Gainwell.
All right, let's go to our next one from @JJDGolf1, who asks, they need 2 running backs and a flex this week, and we have some options here. So here are the names that we're choosing from. We have Najee Harris, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Elijah Mitchell, your favorite, Kenneth Gainwell, Antonio Gibson, Jacoby Myers, Carlos Hyde, and Tony Jones Jr. So where are you starting on this one?
Oof. There's like 2 slam dunk guys, and that's going to be Najee Harris and Antonio Gibson. Like those are your locked and loaded 2 running backs. Harris is a top 12 play this week, and I think most weeks, but they're going against Cincy, so that's a good matchup. And then Gibson is kind of on that borderline right now. Like I think people are overreacting to him getting outscored by JD McKissick last week, and it is a little bit of a tougher matchup, but like I'm definitely starting him. Like there are very few situations I can imagine where I would be benching Antonio Gibson. So you're starting Harris and Gibson. As for your flex spot, right now I'm just automatically tossing out Jones, Tony Jones Jr., Jacoby Myers, Kenneth Gainwell, and Carlos Hyde. Those guys are just, I mean, they're fine bench guys, but compared to the other 2 that you have, it just doesn't make sense. So to me, it comes down to Mitchell versus Edwards-Helaire. Mitchell isn't even practicing. I understand the frustration though with Edwards-Helaire, especially after a poignant and costly fumble to end the game last week. I don't think he's in Andy Reid's doghouse quite yet. And there's also like no one in that backfield that he's going to lose his job to. Like, I just don't see that happening. I don't see him getting the super high volume that we thought he might get, but I think that he has a more established role. Mitchell, on the other hand, banged up in this unpredictable Kyle Shanahan wielded backfield. Both defenses, the Chargers and Packers respectively, are well below average in terms of stopping the run. So I'll call that one a push. The Chiefs-Chargers game, though, has a higher point total than Packers-49ers. It's 56 versus 49.5. I'm giving Edwards-Helaire the edge over Mitchell this week. Mitchell might not even play, so that might make your decision even easier.
Well, and Mitchell might play and then not play, too, as you know, with the Shanahanigans. You never really know what's going to come up with that. So not to steal your phrase.
Literally, did I just see before we started recording this that they signed someone new?
Yeah, Chris Thompson, I think they brought in, and then I saw a second name on there too. So it's just running back roulette in San Francisco.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Carry on. They had Carry on Johnson signed to their practice squad, but I think they're going to bring up. So they need depth. I mean, Jermichael Hasty is injured. Trey Sermon, obviously, terrible injury on the very first carry of his NFL career. So
and a fumble.
Yes, and a fumble. Like
get the whole whammy.
The worst possible permutation of events.
Yeah. And still on the ground pouting a little bit while not tackling the guy who recovered his fumble. Well, we'll say he was hurt, but I feel like he could have like tripped him or something.
Yeah, I mean, unless he was like completely knocked out, you just keep like even
you got to finish the play.
Like Baker Mayfield throws a pick and tries to tackle a dude. Like,
no, well, he probably shouldn't have.
You probably shouldn't have done that.
I don't want to separate your shoulders. You just got to let that one go, Baker. But yeah, I like Clyde Edwards-Helaire as the flex. When in doubt for me, just play the guy on an awesome team that's going to score points. You can never really go wrong with having a piece of the Chiefs offense. I think Chiefs Chargers is probably a shootout where it's one of those games where the last team with the ball is going to come away with the win. So the Packers Niners might end up being that too, but I'd rather just play, I never mind having a Chief in my lineup as long as Patrick Mahomes is around and might give me points. Whoever my guy is, sure. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like if I had to guess, the Chargers will lose this one by a field goal since that is their MO.
They do like to do that. They're a team after my own heart as a Vikings fan. All right. We got one about George Kittle here. Very simple from @ACSnow22. Start, bench, or trade George Kittle.
Yeah, I'm starting him. I don't know which tight end you theoretically have also rostered like that you're benching Kittle for. Like, please don't say it's Max Williams or Jack Doyle or something. Like, don't get cute. I know that Max Williams is like the sexy ad right now. Don't do it. I get it. It's been a rather quiet 2 weeks. Like Kittle, I've been saying is the only 49er you can really trust. I still maintain that he is still a top 6 play. He is in my buy low column this week. So I think if you can get him, like if, for other people, if they can go out and try to trade for him, I think that's an awesome play. He should be fine season long, especially against the Packers, who have given up 3 touchdowns to tight ends so far. I think if you're trading him now, you're trading him at his absolute nadir. So just start him.
Yeah, I agree 100%. You invested a high pick or high auction value here. You can't sell at half the price. You just got to ride it out. And Kittle is a beast. He's going to have a good game soon enough.
Next up here on the Fantasy Flex is a segment we call Elite Entries, where we will dive into the PrizePicks app to build some entries. And for any listeners unfamiliar with PrizePicks, it's just a super simple way to play DFS. PrizePicks offers a bunch of fantasy and prop markets. You choose the picks you like and you build your own entry. And your payout is going to be based on how big your lineup is and how much you risk. So it's super simple. I'm going to identify some markets I like. You build your own PrizePicks entries, and all of us have a little fun and make some money. So today we are going to look at Thursday night football plays for week 3 on PrizePicks as my Carolina Panthers go on the road to take on the Houston Texans. What a barn burner it is going to be. Sam Darnold versus Davis Mills. Like, get excited. On that note, the first play that I like is Davis Mills under 209.5 passing yards. So like Mills wasn't terrible stepping in for Tyrod Taylor, but he wasn't great either. This is a play I actually already mentioned on the previous podcast. I'm just going to reiterate it again. And actually the total has gone up. So I certainly like the under. I just don't foresee a scenario where Mills is going over 200 passing yards against this Carolina defense that has looked really good on a Thursday night, the short week. I just don't see it happening. What say you, Brandon?
Yeah, I mean, look, the Panthers defense has been awesome. You have got to be excited about your guys. They are the number one defense. Oh man, I'm a big Brian Burns fan, so I'm excited to see him tear up the line a little bit this week. They're the number one defensive DVOA team right now. So that is a rough spot to be a rookie making your first start on a short week when you aren't even really prepared to step into this. I like the under. I agree with that one.
Awesome. The next one that I like is Terrace Marshall over 3 catches. So Marshall has had 3 catches in each of his first 2 NFL games and is currently 3rd behind DJ Moore and Christian McCaffrey in catches for the team. I just think his role is going to grow as the wide receiver 2 in this offense. Like I think he's the better receiver. And it's weird because I had this theory that like Robbie Anderson and Sam Darnold would have this chemistry from like surviving the Adam Gase era and he would throw to him, but like Robbie Anderson has just not been nearly the factor that I thought he might be. I think Terrace Marshall really represents the future for them. And I think his role is going to grow. And I think if you're looking ahead in terms of like waiver wire type guys, I would pick him up before he goes off this week. What say you, Brandon?
Yeah, I got to trust the Panthers insider on this one. I don't know much about the rookie. I wasn't super high on him in the draft, but it is a nice spot. I agree. I was expecting Robbie Anderson to have some chemistry there, and it doesn't seem to be the case. So it's a good spot for Terrace Marshall. I like it.
It's definitely a bummer too, because Anderson was being drafted as like a wide receiver 3. And I did take him in spots because I thought that like he was falling later than that, I feel like, in my drafts. And I guess everyone else just saw through that. So that's one I maybe get a little wrong. Next one that I like is Mark Ingram, under 8.5 fantasy points. So Ingram has seen a lot of the workload as the, I'm going to call him the alpha in this backfield, but it's kind of a generous term. It's a very crowded backfield. He hasn't been able to do much with it either. He has 40 rushes, which is 58% share for 126 yards. If you want to do that math, that is 3.2 yards per carry. So not stellar. And a touchdown. He only has 1 catch all year for -1 yards. So suffice it to say, he is not being utilized in the passing game. It's just a bad matchup to me against this Panthers much improved defensive line. So I think he goes under 8.5 fantasy points.
Yep, I like that one. He's not going to catch passes. And so basically you just need to fade a touchdown. If he doesn't get a touchdown, then all we're really looking at is he needs to not get to 85, 90 yards, and you should be safe. So that one makes sense to me.
Awesome. The last one that I am looking at as a possibility is Sam Darnold over 1.5 passing touchdowns. So he's thrown 2 touchdowns. He threw 2 touchdowns against the Saints and 1 touchdown in week 1 against the Jets. I just feel like this Texans defense is not going to get put up too much of a fight. Like we saw them kind of shut down the Jaguars, but that was the Jaguars. And then we realized like, oh yeah, it's the Texans, like everyone calm down. So I definitely see there being 2 touchdowns to go around here.
Yeah, to me, this is the riskiest of the 4, I think, just because, there should be a couple touchdowns. Houston's defense is not much, but CMC is a beast. Any game he could be a threat to just run like 3 of them in on his own. And I don't have a good feel yet for the play calling. And is Darnold going to get the touchdowns? I know Teddy didn't really get many passing touchdowns last year, so I'm still a little skeptical. I wrote an article at Action last week ranking all the opening day quarterbacks and earmuffs. Unfortunately, I had Sam Darnold last out of the entire list.
I would have put him probably last too.
So he's looking good. He's looking good so far, but I am probably taking the Texans points on this one at multiple scores at home, underdog. I still need to see a little more from Sam Darnold. I like what Matt Rule and this team is doing, but I've got to see them pay it off a little bit. So that's the one where I might have to double think about it before going in.
Yeah, totally. I think that was the one that I was struggling a little bit to find a 4th one. And that one I think has a better than 50% chance of happening, but it's not one that I feel super, super strongly about. Again, I feel the same way that I need to like kind of see it from Sam Darnold a little bit more and see him beat up on teams that are not just the Jets. And I mean, the Saints game was impressive still. I don't want to take that away from him, but yeah. Anyway, that is our elite entry for Thursday Night Football, going with Davis Mills under 209.5 passing yards, Terrace Marshall over 3 catches, Mark Ingram under 8.5 fantasy points, and Sam Darnold over 1.5 passing touchdowns. As a reminder, you can mix and match fantasy points and player props to make your lineups super spicy. PrizePicks markets move, so you will want to be nimble to lock in the best numbers. If you have not created a PrizePicks account yet, please check out the link in our episode description because PrizePicks has a special offer for Fantasy Flex listeners. They will match your first deposit up to $100. Just click the link in our episode description or visit prizepicks.com and use promo code ACTION10. All right, let us just keep it moving here on our mailbag episode. Hit me with the next question.
All right, well, we are going to go back in on George Kittle here with another question from @OspreyRob2. He wants to know, who is a realistic person to get in return for Kittle?
Yeah, I think this was a reply tweet to the previous question about start, bench, or trade Kittle. If you absolutely must deal Kittle to someone, which I don't really advise, because like I said, I think you're selling low, I would ultimately try to package him with another player. Like say you can broker a deal with the person who has like Noah Fant or Logan Thomas or Dallas Goedert, or even Tyler Higbee, who I think is an interesting buy low at this point, and then make a modest upgrade at another position. I think that could be interesting. Straight up, it's just really difficult to compare values without knowing the positional scarcity in your league. But if you can flip Kittle 1-to-1 for someone like, I don't know, like that's been a buy low, like a Jonathan Taylor or an Antonio Gibson or AJ Brown, or even like if the Saquon Barkley manager is freaking out and really wants George Kittle for some reason, all those guys have been underperforming. I would definitely look to flip them 1-to-1. But like I said, it's just a little bit harder to compare those values.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the 1-for-2 trade. Again, you paid a lot for George Kittle. So trading out of him now at low value to get the lower tight end and maybe a little help elsewhere, that's just the opposite. Like I'd be the one offering the Goddard, the Higbee deal, trying to get to Kittle. So I feel like you made your bed. You've invested the high pick on Kittle. I would personally rather just hang on to him for now. If you are going to trade him, certainly if you can get a Kamara, a Gibson, a Barkley, I'll certainly listen to that one. It's a sell low for sell low opportunity at that point.
Yeah, I meant to clarify that would be like a 2-for-2 trade. So like maybe you'd be downgrading at tight end and like upgrading at another position. Cause yeah, I totally don't like the 2-for-1 or like 1-for-2. Yeah. Cause you should definitely be trying to upgrade your roster. So
yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. All right, up next from @James H. Bope writes, should more redraft leagues use a third round reversal instead of a true snake draft? Getting philosophical here today.
Have you done any of these third round reversal drafts?
I haven't. I would like to. I try to convince my friends to add it into our draft, but we like to keep it traditional.
Interesting. Okay, well, I don't have a super strong opinion about it since I've only done one draft that had the third round reversal. That was the Scott Fish Bowl this year. I actually had the 101 pick. This is a super flex league with tight end premium. So it was a little spicy to go with McCaffrey, even though that sounds weird. Like a lot of people go straight with Travis Kelce or Patrick Mahomes or something. And then at 212, I went Jalen Hurts. Then, you don't pick 301, you pick 312. This was the big mistake that I made, was the Matt Ryan, Kyle Pitts stack. That is my fault. 401 for Kyle Pitts is not that early for a tight end premium league, but I do regret the Matt Ryan pick, obviously. And then I went Terry McLaurin, Myles Gaskin, Tyler Lockett, Mike Davis. A lot of Falcons here. I don't even want to talk about that, but the team isn't bad at all. My biggest mistakes were the Falcons things, which had nothing to do with the third round reversal. So your average pick, like the mean of your picks goes from 29.4 to 31.6 in third round reversal. So the impact isn't as big as it would seem. Like it seems like it's a big impact if you have one of the edge picks. And I think it's kind of cool. Like it does de-emphasize the draft order. Like people don't focus as much on like what pick you have, and balances out the league. So I think it's a little more relevant in years with like a slam dunk 101, like maybe last year when Christian McCaffrey was literally like, there was just no argument to be made. But yeah, I think it's interesting. And I think it's cool to like spice up fantasy leagues, especially if you're in like a bunch of leagues like us. I mean, I'm in a lot of leagues. So like making a draft a little bit more fun, keeping me on my toes. I like it.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of having some sort of unique rule, something to make your draft a little different. If for no other reason than, especially if you are a seasoned fantasy player, mix it up a little bit, add in a twist, because everyone else has already had fantasy football solved for them by people like Samantha, who has told you exactly who to pick, what round, everyone to figure it out. And, it's a little boring to me. It's the same thing in all the leagues. So mix it up, whether it's the third round reversal, or one of my favorite rules we used to do was have a flex position that had to be a rookie starter. So you had to start a rookie running back, receiver, tight end, and just, mixes things up a little bit. And you can't just click on an article to have everyone tell you what to do on that. You got to send it into the mailbag instead. So I don't know if I would like the third reversal. That is to say, I don't think I would want one of the high picks. Yeah. It's a long wait. And at least the payoff is you get those two top 25 type guys. But if you lose that second one now, you might end up with Matt Ryan. So here's my good news for you, Samantha. Sorry, shots fired. Here's my good news. Dropping today, the same day as this podcast, is my article that I just finished writing on which 0-2 NFL team can still make the playoffs. I like the Falcons. So maybe some good news for your Falcons stack in the Scott Fish Bowl. Maybe these guys will come around still.
I mean, I am not panicking on Kyle Pitts nearly as much as I'm panicking on some of the other members of that team. I will say that Jalen Hurts and Matt Ryan, so I took them in consecutive picks. It is super flex. I think they were QB 13 and QB 14. So yeah, QB 14 is a little early for Ryan, but like it's not the end of the world. And I also got Goff in like 5 or 6 rounds later. So yeah. I feel okay. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah, and Pitts is definitely reasonable in a league where tight end has a premium too. So I think your team will turn out all right. But speaking of quarterbacks who have disappointed, named Ryan, here's a question from Ryan about another Ryan. How about that transition? So Ryan writes, are you worried enough about Ryan Tannehill to consider replacing him?
Yeah, it's tricky. Yeah. So while I don't think it's 100% Tannehill's fault, like this doesn't matter for fantasy purposes, I am worried enough about him. They have allowed the second most sacks in the NFL so far with 9. That's tied with the Bengals and behind only the Jets, who just have looked absolutely terrible. So I think this has really hurt Tannehill's performance as a passer so far. If you have him, I would definitely consider streaming quarterbacks week to week, because I assume he's your QB1, but you can get guys, or at least could have gotten guys before this waiver cycle, like Daniel Jones, like Derek Carr, like Teddy Bridgewater. Any of those guys would have been awesome streamers this week. Next week, there'll be another streamer. Even like Kirk Cousins might be available to you. But like I said, I would consider streaming quarterbacks week to week until we see this offensive line perform better in pass protection. I would even consider starting guys like Sam Darnold over him this week because the matchup is better. But yeah, like Bridgewater, Jones, Darnold, and Carr were all widely available before this waiver cycle. So it's certainly not the end of the world if you drafted Tannehill, but there are options for you.
Yeah, I mean, the hope is that Ryan has at least a second option on the roster. Hopefully we didn't go into the year with just Ryan Tannehill as the only hope. There are so many good quarterbacks that you really should be able to find a second option out there, even to trade for one if you need to. There are a lot of those, the Darnolds and Teddys of the world that can add to the rotation. I think the best news with Ryan Tannehill is that he still gets to play the Texans twice and the Jaguars twice. So there are definitely some matchups there. I'm not excited about him. I was a big fade on the Titans this year without Arthur Smith around. And we don't really know yet. We had one really bad Titans week and one where they pretty much looked like they looked the last couple of years. So I don't know that's a panic yet, but I wasn't really ever unpanicked about the Titans. Yeah. So
I think I'm kind of on the same page that like, I'm like a little bit worried, but I never started out very high.
Yeah. All right. So Daniel has a question about one of the guys you just mentioned drafting in the fishbowl, Mike Davis. So is it time to panic on Mike Davis, or should we be rostering Cordarrelle Patterson?
Yeah, I just want to say that this is the second week in a row that I've gotten the same question from a different person. And it's almost like it's haunting me because like, I don't want to say I was bullish on Davis or anything like that, but like where he was falling in drafts, I was. If you got him in like the 9th round or 8th round, which is, I think I got him in the fishbowl in the 8th or 9th round. I mean, that's not terrible draft capital that you used. But yeah, obviously the start to the season isn't exactly what we hoped for. He is currently RB31 though. Like we're acting like the guy is absolutely terrible. Like that's better than Saquon Barkley. That's better than a lot of guys that were drafted well ahead of him. I know different situations, but yes, he is also coming off a brutal week 2 matchup against the Buccaneers. Atlanta couldn't get anything going on the ground. Like it wasn't like Patterson was that much better. Patterson's really just the gadget guy. I think he's worth rostering, especially in PPR formats. Like he could give a little bit more upside, but I don't think he eats into Davis's rushing yards out of the backfield. I think he just takes away some of that third down passing work, which made Davis super valuable last season. So yeah, Patterson's interesting, widely available off waivers, or at least was before this cycle. So I think he's worth adding, but I'm not like dropping Davis yet. I'm not giving up hope.
Yeah, I'm not dropping him, but I'm definitely worried. I feel like the whole thing with Mike Davis was opportunity and that there was nobody else around. There was no other running backs, which is still the case. Cordell Patterson is not a running back. He's a kick returner who is a receiver who is playing running back. And it's like they just told him, hey, just treat every sweep like a kickoff return. And it's kind of working so far. I was thinking about this today. You know, well, I don't know. I can't speak for you. I played a lot of football video games growing up. Are you a video gamer?
I'm not.
Okay. So I feel like slowly but surely NFL strategy is embracing what video game nerds have been doing for decades already. Like nobody ever punts on video games. You rarely run the ball. You spread it out and pass, and you get 5 receivers out. And the other thing you do is if you do run the ball, you're like, well, why am I playing with a stupid running back? I got a speed 98 receiver over here. I'm going to put him at running back. We've been doing this for years. So it's, in my opinion, the NFL is just finally catching up. And that's what's happening with Patterson. To me, this is a spot where I liked Mike Davis coming into the year. I recommended him to friends and drafts, but I think it might be DOA because Atlanta's not looking good. And the main play here was that, look, they don't have anyone else, so he's going to get all the volume. So even if Atlanta does get better, like we think, the volume play appears to be gone because Patterson is definitely going to eat into that. So definitely not a drop, but I definitely would not be drafting him as excitedly, right now as I may have a few weeks ago.
Fair enough.
All right. We've got one on a much better running back, Derrick Henry. So Chris wants to know, should I sell high on Derrick Henry after his monster game?
How dare you? No, unless someone offers you, like, I hate to say no definitively, but like unless someone offers you something ridiculous in return, I am all in on Henry rest of season. Like we've seen the Titans passing game struggles. I think they will continue to lean on the run pretty heavily. We're not going to expect that kind of production. Like we're not going this. I got Derrick Henry in one league. Okay. I just want to say, full on stiff arm tractorcito Derrick Henry in this league. I was up by so many points, and this league has multipliers for like big games and stuff. Uh-oh. Derrick Henry dropped a 69-point game on me. Nice, not actually nice, but nice. Terrible. Yeah, obviously we're not going to see that every week, but so glad that he went off on me. But yeah, Henry is as guaranteed as they come, I feel like, in terms of fantasy production. People really, really overreacted to his first week. But like I said, with the Titans passing game looking kind of anemic right now, I think that he will continue to be fed.
Yeah, look, you don't sell high on first round picks. You drafted him to get games like exactly. This. So if you have Henry, enjoy the ride, hope that he stays healthy, and hope that he just keeps plowing through the defense. So, all right, we've got a couple more here, I think, and then we'll get you out of here. So Sean writes, should I trade Antonio Gibson for Julio Jones if I need a receiver? And this is a half PPR league.
Yeah, I don't love that trade. It's going to depend a little bit on your roster build. Like, I don't know exactly who you have, but at this point, you are selling low on Gibson after one game in which he was outscored by JD McKissick. I admit that his usage in that game was a bit peculiar. But I think he should continue to offer low-end RB1 upside in the right matchups. He's more valuable, in my opinion, than the second receiver in a Titans offense, which, again, we've been just kind of down on one passing touchdown all year. I don't think that continues to that degree, but it's certainly a concern. And Gibson, I think in the long run, I think in the long run, we're going to see more of Taylor Heinicke. I don't know if we'll see Ryan Fitzpatrick again this year, and Taylor Heinicke being in there, I think does help Antonio Gibson in the long run. So don't sell low on him.
Yeah, I think I'd hang on to Gibson. I have not been high on the Titans passing game. So, it is a buy low spot, but it's a sell low on Gibson too. Like that was probably your top pick. Julio Jones was a round or two later. And you rather have the bell cow running back if you can. There's just not that many of them. Like that's the whole thing in fantasy. So I don't love either player, but I'd rather just hang on to Gibson and hope that Washington, they can really only go up from where they're at. So I think that they should get a little better.
Fair enough.
All right. Our last one comes from @Myrao. Let's go with that. So they would like to know, what do I do with Trey Lance? This is a 1-1 team, streaming quarterback, Kirk Cousins, the first 2 weeks. Keep calm and carry on or cut bait.
Yeah, I think this just depends on if you need the roster space. Like, I'm totally fine with streaming Cousins, especially this week against the Seahawks, especially since it seems like he has like a really competent third receiver. Like, that passing game has looked pretty strong. However, if you do find yourself needing an extra spot, and assuming this is like making a lot of assumptions, but assuming this is a redraft league, no keepers, no dynasty, and it's a 1 quarterback league, not super flex, I would definitely consider cutting Lance. Like, you typically don't need to have 2 quarterbacks in a normal type league. If there is a keeper dynasty element, though, I would keep Lance. Obviously, he has longer term value, but like, Lance is sitting on the waiver wire in a couple of my leagues right now, and I think that's fine.
Yeah, I think that's where he ought to be for right now. He's just not quite ready to play. Look, I'm a North Dakota State diehard fan, so Trey Lance is my guy, but this was always supposed to be a wait and see approach with him. Like, I think he's going to come in and play a few snaps, get a couple of red zone looks, maybe steal a touchdown every now and then. Clearly that's the plan. Jimmy Garoppolo is not going to be the guy for so long, but I think right now Garoppolo is the guy, and it doesn't look like we're getting close to turning things over to Lance, and we don't even know what he'll look like even if we get there. So yeah, if your settings are that there's an extra reason to keep Lance, then keep him. If it's because it's a keeper, a dynasty, a second quarterback, then keep him for sure. Otherwise, I don't know. I would cut bait because I don't know that he would have been on my roster to start with. And look, you probably could just get him back in a couple of weeks from now anyways, if you want him. I'm not sure there's going to be a mad rush to grab him.
Fair enough. All right. That will do it for this mailbag episode. Brandon, thank you so much for joining me on this episode. Please tell everyone where they can find you this season.
Well, they can find me all over the Action Network. We've got all my picks each week. I'm picking every NFL game. So you can follow that at the Action Network and on our award-winning app. Make sure to follow everything there. And lots of other NFL stuff and NBA coming soon as well. So plenty to find if you're looking for NFL and NBA writing there.
Oh, and give everyone your social handles too.
Oh, yes. At Wheaton Brando. So WheatonBrando. That's on Twitter. And you can check out my most recent absolute meltdown on the Minnesota Timberwolves if you would like to enjoy my sports nihilism.
All right. Well, again, thank you so much for joining me during this super busy time. I hope you enjoy the Cubs game. As a reminder, Sean Kerner and Chris Raybon are here on the Fantasy Flex every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, giving you guys all the DFS waiver wire rankings info that you guys need to dominate your fantasy leagues. I will be back next Tuesday with another round of 21 questions with a special guest, Chris Towers from CBS. And then I will be back next Thursday with another mailbag episode. So don't forget to send me mailbag questions to mailbag@actionnetwork.com. Thanks again for listening. Please rate and review our show on Apple Podcasts. Download us wherever you like to listen, and we will see you next time on the Fantasy Flex presented by PrizePicks. Peace out, y'all.